Alright, I'm back at Maple Springs. This has been closed for more than a year. It was because of the fires, the airport fire I think it was. It was the very first trail that I ever went on a adventure bike that was a 1300 GS at the time. When I first switched from being a beginner on my dirt bike into being on an ADV bike. So it's a bit nostalgic for me, it's been a year or more than a year, and I've ridden a lot since then. I'm on a different bike, started out on the 1300, and then I went here several times on the 890 Adventure R, and this is going to be my first time on the 500, so we'll see how this feels. I will most likely edit this a little bit and probably put a link in the description to my second channel, and maybe put the full trail ride there in case somebody wants to look at the trail itself end to end given the fires and see what it's like now. I don't know how different it's going to be. I don't think fires necessarily caught a lot of this trail itself aside from the very top of the mountain, but I'm not entirely sure what's going on, so we'll see.
And you are watching the full trail ride and not the edited one. So there will be a link at the bottom in the description to the more edited version on my main channel. You will see the trail ride all the way up and then most of the way down. My camera actually died before I reached the very end.
Okay, a little bit of water. I remember those being a little deeper when I first started riding this trail. I think it was in the spring, so that makes sense. It's a little bit later now, so I think a lot of stuff has been drying up. Yeah, this is entirely dry. I believe this was basically covered in water from what I remember, at the peak at least of the wet season, I guess. I don't know, that may be abnormal though. I'm not sure if that's normal because I've only been here for about a year, I only started here 2 years ago, so this is only my second time ever coming here in a sort of a different riding season, so to speak, or a different summer. If you're not familiar, this is not a technical trail. It's very easy. Like I said, it was my very first trail on the 1300 GS, right? So it's not a difficult trail. I just have a lot of nostalgia for it, and I'm kind of excited to revisit it. out here on a Friday, so I don't expect to see too many people, at least assuming it's similar to before, where it's very populated on the weekends, and you see a few on Fridays because it's a very popular trail, so it's not like it's dead, but there shouldn't be too much traffic. I actually have an arrangement to ride this again tomorrow on Saturday with somebody, but and I was gonna go somewhere else today, but I decided last moment that I'll just ride this twice in a row. I just have such nostalgia for it. I just wanted to get out here last moment. Otherwise I would have gone to Hungry Valley was the plan. The dirt starts here. So far it looks very familiar. Not too surprising. Like I said, I think I don't think the fire touched a lot of the trail. I think it was mostly the very top at Santiago Peak. So we'll see what that's like now. I'm assuming all the equipment and stuff was lost, but I don't know. Whee! I don't think it's been graded or anything. It seems pretty much how I remember it. Which makes sense, there was probably no reason to do that. And I didn't really expect it. Something I thought about just now. Still the same place where it's a little bit of water. And here's the probably the most difficult turn, I would say, on this trail. I think I dropped a bike once or twice back in my big bike days on that turn. Already a beer bottle. People just leave things. I don't get it. I'm remembering all the little like bumps and stuff, like, oh yeah, that rock, I remember that. That little dip, I remember that. Very lazy with my shifting. shift. Don't be lazy, don't be lazy. I need to get out of the habit of just being in second gear constantly because it's convenient. This is definitely one of those things where, like, if I had like a small CC 2-stroke or something, I would be forced to be shifting a lot more. So that's definitely a way that I'm being held back by riding on with a bit of a larger engine and with a much flatter torque curve. Unless I'm going uphill, like a steep incline or something, I don't really have to worry about the power band, right? All right. Water break. Still no particular signs of the fire or anything like that. Again, kind of expected that until we get to the top. Maybe I'm wrong actually. Hopefully you can see out to the right here. Maybe that is a result of the fire. Interestingly, they do seem to have made this a proper road. This was like a nice sandy little offshoot with kind of some sandy whoops, similar things like that, but not anymore. And up here to the left, I've seen a YouTube video. There's at least used to be a single track trail, and I wanted to ride it, but then I realized I don't think you're allowed. Like, I think you're supposed to stick to the trail here, so I'm not gonna try it. We're about to show up at some of the rocky section, or at least we'll see if it's still rocky. But you know, when I was starting out, that was I was worried about going through here. This one does seem to have been graded, or not a sweep, whatever, done something to, because it's not as rocky as I remember it. But it used to be sort of the the latter half going up here is used to be at least a little bit more difficult, and one of the reasons was the rocky sections, which, like I said, they seem to have been gotten removed now, probably because I'm guessing, I have no idea, but I'm guessing because utility vehicle or whatever with respect to the fire probably didn't want to be going through all those rocks. You can see some of it still being here, but it's like packed away and not really in the main path anymore. Yeah, you can see how rocky it actually is, and but it's not as spread out in the actual trail, the track, so to speak, as it used to be. Bunch of embedded rocks, though, still. There's much less loose. just for old time's sake, I'm gonna head in here just briefly in and out. Too lazy to stop for photos or something, especially because I still don't have a side stand. I need to get it back on here on this bike. I lost the side stand recently and I've gotten the parts to replace it, but I just haven't done it yet. I lost it, it was just a loose bolt. It wasn't like some kind of crash or something, it was just a loose bolt. And no chance of finding that, so I had to take it off. Okay, if I remember correctly, this is where that single track that I mentioned came out. Oh, but I could be wrong. I do see that little trail going up there, but maybe that's it, I don't know. I don't remember which direction. But like I said, I don't think you're supposed to... I need to look it up, but I don't think that this is a place where you're allowed to ride wherever. I think you're supposed to stick to the trail. Now this is definitely obviously burnt, right? So apparently, yeah, it got this far, not just the tip of the top, like the Santiago Peak. And I believe this is also exactly more or less exactly where I was on that 1250 GS, and the handlebars just gave way all of a sudden, and then I turned back. Yeah, definitely looks different. Still a lot of blackness. Skid practice. Burned area ahead. Hazardous conditions. Oh, that looks like a side trail as well. So tempting. It's interesting how the trees are sort of still standing. Like, I don't know, like, do they actually survive and they slowly replace themselves from the inside? Or are they actually dead? Or the root comes back up? Like, I'm not sure how recovery works. Maybe I'll look into that when I get home. Let me sit down for a moment just to rest my feet. It feels like a different trail almost. Like I don't feel at home. I don't feel like I recognize it the same way. I don't have any like in the past. I keep associating back to things like, oh, I remember this corner. I was like on this bike talking about this or whatever. I was riding with this person. But now that it feels like it's a completely different trail, I'm not having that, even though it's the same trail. So. There we go. I remember this. The big boulder section. Always worried about things like vibrating off the bike riding this section. Not so much on this bike though, because there aren't that many things to vibrate off, and the suspension is a lot more absorbing compared to the AEV bikes that I rode here. Yeah, so some traffic, but as I expected, not too much. Okay, I see actual equipment. I wonder if that made it. All this stuff has been rebuilt already, or did it sort of make it through the fires? Because I saw webcam footage of the fire reaching the literal peak. So I expected this stuff to have gotten lost. I don't know. It's kind of besides the tree, like, it's not obvious that there was a fire here, to be honest. Did they rebuild it? Seems like, I don't know. It doesn't seem like it's newly built, but maybe. I don't know. Alright, and this last bit used to be the most challenging part. looks like it's pretty similar to what it used to be. Just pretty deep whoops, especially if you're on a 1300 GS and similar bikes. Quite chill going up that on this bike. Although honestly, that would have been similar to the ECRB 890. It's just I'm a year plus, more than a year later in my riding, so it was already pretty easy when I stopped, or like back then when I was on the 890. So I'm kind of tempted to go down the other side of the mountain, which I never did before. I'm not going to do it now though. I am going to try. Woo! I was gonna say, I am gonna try heading up there. See what this looks like now. Yeah, I remember this being kind of rocky and gnarly. Let's try going up this. Okay. It was a little more chill than I thought it would be. I haven't gone here ever. I guess it's just to these towers. Yep. Alright, heading back down. Same way I came. Even though I am tempted to try the other side here. Not today. Slowing down to look at the landscape. Whew. Sitting down to rest my back a little bit. It's probably not doing wonders for the camera angle, but if you're watching this, it's the low effort copy of the entire ride on my second channel, so sorry about that. I saw an entrance to trail, but no. See if I can pass my four-wheeled friend. I can, thank you very much. Well, well, well. Taking the opportunity to do some braking practice on the way down. Okay. It's loose. I just have insane amount of traction still. Like I still feel like that. Like this is no longer like, oh, it's just drained. Like the traction that I have on this bike with, you know, the mooses in there with a 10 to 12 psi equivalent, and these tires, the Otas Traction Enduro IT. Like the traction compared to what I was riding around on the 890 and the 1300, right? I mean, the 890, I still have the Mitas Enduro Trail XT Plus, so they're among the pretty much the more or less almost the most aggressive off-road you can have. That's street legal, but I was running them at street pressures, and they're not as off-roady as these, of course. But I mean, especially when you're in loose stuff, like spinning out the rear, it just happens super easily. I mean, yes, 890 has a more powerful engine and so on, so like that contributes. But I like steering with the rear is hard to practice on this bike because like it's hard to break loose unless you're like very aggressive. Another four-wheeled friend. Let me try that again. I mean, I think part of it is also that despite this bike, you know, the EXF 500, it has, or 500 EXF, despite having a pretty good power band in terms of, for this kind of bike, it's still even in first gear, it still lacks something at the very low end. So to really break loose very easily, you'd have to use the clutch basically, but and then not be too skittish.
And my camera is about to die, so the last bits going down are missing.